you may know of Elijah Stacy. Elijah Stacy is many, many things. One of them is an author. So Elijah is 22 years old. He is a Duchenne patient. He lives in Riverside, California with his family. He has a younger brother, Kai, also a Duchenne patient, an older brother, Bill, who is a healthcare worker, paramedic, both in the Army and in civilian life. And his parents, Kelly and Bill, I've had the opportunity to meet. My wife also has had the opportunity to meet the family. We've come to love Elijah and his family. And I feel lucky to be able to introduce Elijah because I consider him a friend. More importantly, at Satellos, we consider Elijah a mentor. When Michael and I founded the company, we founded based on science. We founded the company based on scientific discoveries, not because we had a personal connection to this disease area. We're both parents, we're both grandparents, but this disease was not one that we had any personal connection to. And as we began to get close to having a drug, we wanted to know more about the patient population, because what's really important to us and to everybody in the company, everybody in Satellos gets a copy of this book when they join, and they read this book. And we talk about Elijah, the journey, the book, and all of the patients, because we want Satellos to be a company that is focused on patients, on making life easier for families and patients, both in terms of the journey as a result of medicine that can help, but also how we go about developing the drug. Because we're very mindful. I've been in biotech for 30 years. I've been involved in lots of different companies. I founded other companies. And I know the pain that can be involved in the whole clinical trial process. So we want to be as sparing as we possibly can. Hello, Elijah. You may or may not have heard everything I've said so far. I'm trying my best to embarrass you a little bit.
No, hello, Frank.
It's nice to see you. And Elijah one day calls me, literally reaches out. I didn't know who he was, didn't know if I should return the call, got chatting. Then my wife and I were on vacation in California a couple of years ago. We discovered we were staying not far from Riverside. So we drove out, had this magnificent lunch with Elijah and his Kai and his mom, Kelly. And my wife and I driving back said, you know, what a wonderful family and what a wonderful young man. And, you know, his brother clearly adores him. And you're in for a treat today to hear from Elijah. He's an author. He created his own foundation. He calls his foundation Destroy Duchenne. So his dream is even bigger. So you can embrace that dream. And he is unstoppable as far as I can tell. And Elijah is just an unstoppable force. He also has created a line of clothing. So together with a group called Municipal, which, who's the actor? Mark Wahlberg, how could I not remember Mark Wahlberg's name? Has created a line of Duchenne clothing based on the artwork of Elijah's dear friend, Ryan Gomez, sadly departed. And you can look this up, go to Municipal, it's wonderful. And Elijah will single-handedly drive companies like Satellos and others to find a way to treat this disease in a much friendlier way and a much more sustainable way for the patients. And so we can help make this a much more livable situation for everybody. So Elijah, you're speaking to a group in Ottawa, Canada, that just can't wait to hear what you have to say. Over to you.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much, Frank. I really appreciate you introducing me and everything you said, and it's really an honor for you to introduce me. So thank you. And I can tell everybody in the audience that Frank has genuinely changed my life for the better. And I'm just honored to be a consultant with Satellos and work with them and the entire team. Such smart and caring people, and yeah, I love working with Satellos. So I'm very honored that Frank introduced me today. But I also want to thank Defeat Duchenne for all they do for the DMD community and for having me speak today. It's truly a highlight of my career to be able to speak to you guys today, as today marks the first time I'm ever speaking to a country different than mine. Um, Parents and patients have a very close place in my heart as I'm committing to improving your lives. I hope my speech today leaves you today filled with hope and excitement for the future and encouraged for the present day. Now, my story all begins when I was just 15 years old. It was the summer of 2017. I was in attendance for a fundraiser for Duchenne muscular dystrophy that was hosted by a high school dance team. Inside of the high school theater, I sat on the first row in my wheelchair and decided to read a booklet they passed out while I waited for the presentation to begin. The booklet was full of pictures of different members of the dance teams, some ads, and nothing really else, until I got to the last page. There, it talked about Duchenne. It mentioned that DMD was a muscle wasting disease and that patients lose their ability to walk around age 11. This wasn't news to me. The booklet then went on to explain that patients will lose their ability to use their arms in their teenage years. This was news to me. I instantly froze and felt my blood getting warm. The booklet now had my complete attention. I couldn't imagine not being able to use my arms. I grew up playing catch with my dad, as he was the head football coach of our community high school. I loved shooting baskets and playing basketball with my friends. I loved remaining pretty independent even in my wheelchair, and the thought of not having control of my arms, being able to do these things, made me uncomfortable. It got worse. The booklet then went on to explain that the average lifespan of someone with DMD was 25 years. I stopped breathing in that moment as I started to hold my breath. Now I was really feeling lightheaded and warm. I thought this had to be a mistake, and that it wasn't true for me. I mean, it was crazy to think that I'm supposed to be dead at the time in the next 10 years. However, the booklet made sure I understood this reality, as it explained the diaphragm and heart are muscles that will also weaken as time progresses. Finally, the book mentioned that Duchenne is incurable, and I took that as a challenge. I like when people tell me something is impossible. It's great motivation. The presentation started shortly after reading the book. As the dancers danced on stage, I danced with the different emotions inside my mind. A couple weeks later, it was July 25th, 2017, and it was my last day as an intern for the Riverside District Attorney's Office. Still dressed in my suit and tie, I headed to my backyard and handed my little brother, Kai, my phone. Standing on his toes, he filmed me announcing that I'd be starting a nonprofit organization named Destroy Duchenne, and that I was going on a mission to cure my own disease. Shortly after I posted it to my social media, I went to work. I did everything from coming up with the name, designing the logo in Photoshop, writing the mission statement, building the website, crafting the initial business plan, recruiting the board of directors, and of course, filling out all the legal paperwork to make this an official 501c3 nonprofit. Flashing forward, I'd gone on to do many things for my cause. In 2018, I started to do professional speaking because I was focused on bringing awareness to this unknown disease and started to talk with many scientists within the field and increase my overall understanding of the disease. In 2019, I started what I called the DMD Ice Cup Challenge, which was designed to be similar to the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, as DMD has many similar outcomes to ALS, but DMD affects the young, hence the cup instead of the bucket. I had my whole school doing it, then the whole school district, which is one of the largest in California, and then members of biotechs and others started to join in the challenge. Eventually, people with a relationship to DMD start to do it around the world. I saw some do it in Nigeria, Dubai, the UK, Australia, and so on. Months later, at 17 years old, I'd fly up to Seattle, Washington to meet my business role model, Jeff Bezos. Inside of Amazon's headquarters, the Day One building, I would talk to Mr. Bezos about Destroy Duchenne and my mission to cure this disease. We also talked about starting Amazon and its thoughts on many other things like value investing. In early 2020, I'd be invited as the keynote speaker for Sarepta Therapeutics. Right before my speech, I'd have lunch with their CEO, VP, and other senior executives as we discussed everything in DMD. In 2021, I was asked to present to a biotech company named Solid Biosciences on World Duchenne Awareness Day and left getting a job there. I'd go on to work as a consultant, and it was Solid Biosciences that bring me directly inside the biotech industry, and this changed the way I thought about my contribution towards fighting my own disease. I would enjoy my many conversations with my scientific colleagues. In fact, one of my fondest memories being at the Boston Harbor talking about the ins and outs of how we can go about treating Duchenne. Weeks later, I published my first book called A Small Life, and just days later, it became an Amazon bestseller. My book is a memoir where I talk about all the adversity I've overcame. At the end of each chapter, I include a life lesson that the reader can benefit from, such as the self-image, dichotomy of control, be a leader to someone, and so on. I wrote this book to make DMD a mainstream known disease and to transform my suffering into something that can help others overcome theirs. I do lots of TV interviews and media appearances, such as being on Forbes twice, Entrepreneur Magazine, Good Day LA, NBC4, and so on. A couple weeks later, after my book was published, I was contacted by two Hollywood producers, one who has an upcoming show about his life coming to Netflix, and the other was nominated for an Emmy, who saw me in the media. They asked me if I'd like to turn my book, A Small Leap, into a movie, and I thought to myself, how about that for making Duchenne a mainstream known disease? Long story short, I agreed I'd like to turn my book into a movie. A few months later, I'd find myself in Hollywood having dinner with the executive producer of ABC's The Good Doctor. And in September 2022, we would announce in the publication deadline that the project is official. Around this time, I started to invest my earnings for my book in speeches to a company named Satellos Bioscience, as I became very interested in muscle regeneration. I started to watch this company like a hawk. I'd watch their every interview, read every press release, and would educate myself about the science being done. A couple months later, I became confident that I could help this company and decided to reach out to management, requesting a meeting with their CEO. A few hours later, they responded with enthusiasm and agreed to meet me. After a few meetings with their executives, I officially joined as a business developer associate. Later, I presented to Capricorn Therapeutics at their headquarters in San Diego, California, and I'm now also officially a consultant at Capricorn. Today, at the age of 23, I'm a consultant for 5 biotech companies simultaneously. I am truly doing all I can to bring about good for the human race, and specifically for those with Duchenne. Just recently, my nonprofit, as Frank mentioned earlier, collaborated with the clothing brand Municipal, which Mark Wahlberg co-founded. We made socks, pants, shirts, hoodies, and of course hats, which most of it is now sold out. We give a big thanks to Mark Wahlberg as he shouted us out and brought tons of awareness towards Duchenne on his Instagram. Now, what really makes this special is the clothing is made up of my late friend Ryan's artwork. His painting, Wonders of Space, is ingrained in all the clothing and even inside of the hat, and it completely makes up the hoodie. Ryan is really one of the first people to support Destroy Duchenne since I founded it, and he's been helping me ever since we met. He was at our first fundraisers, my book signing, and he used to sell his artwork and donate the proceeds to this cause. Whenever we would FaceTime, he'd ask me about the latest science news. Ryan was such a calming soul to be around, and the more time goes on, the more I miss him. As evident by this collaboration, Ryan and I are still working together. Two patients coming together to use their gifts and talents to complete the cure for Duchenne. He always wanted to make a difference, and if he were here with us today, I'd tell him this. My friend, your art is now being worn by some of the most famous people in the world, and millions of people have seen it, leading to a historical amount of awareness being brought to Duchenne. You could see I'm absolutely determined to put an end to this disease and make the world a better place. I'm focused on advancing what author Simon Sinek calls your why. Why you do what you do. Mine is this: to minimize human suffering and propel human prosperity so that humanity can have a better quality of life. This manifests itself in many different ways, such as helping advancing medicine to lessons one pain, or writing books and speeches that inspire people to prosper, both of which lead to a better quality of life. Now, what shaped my why? As you may have picked up early on in my journey, my little brother Kai was filming me standing on his toes, which is because Kai would be diagnosed with Duchenne as well. But not only Kai, my other little brother Max would also be diagnosed with DMD. Along with DMD, Max suffered a massive stroke due to heart surgery as a newborn, and it left him blind, confined to a bed, cognitively impaired, needing a feeding tube, and a full-time nurse. I'd spent many days and nights in the hospital as we made many emergency trips for Max. I got very familiar with the smells and sounds of medicine from an early age. At the age of 14, Max would pass away. The pain and devastation my parents went through is not explainable with words. Watching go through this impacted me significantly and greatly shaped my why, and further increased my dedication towards parents and patients of DMD. I remember seeing the casket of my little brother and being next to my parents as they sat there in the church. It's a feeling no parent should have to go through, but unfortunately, so many have and will go through. At the gravesite, I placed a Destroy Duchenne sticker on Max's casket as a symbol and promise that avengement is coming. Now, I want to read a part of my book, which I wrote when I was just 17, and I think it does a good job explaining the cruelty of Duchenne, which I know we all can relate to. Duchenne feels dehumanizing because it is constantly stealing the basic things that make me human. Duchenne is the thief that robs a child of their health and hinders their childhood. The cruelest part about having Duchenne is it teases me with my health. It allowed me to experience being able to walk, even though it didn't let me walk normally, and then Duchenne stole that away from me. When I was able to walk, I could feel myself slowly getting physically weaker. In the back of my mind, I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't want to think about it, and I tried my hardest not to. I didn't want to think about possibly one day not being able to walk, although walking made me physically exhausted. I didn't want to think about possibly one day not being able to lift my arms over my head, but I knew that was my fate just by observing how much strength declined in a short amount of time. Duchenne teases me with the experience of life itself. It allowed me to be born into this world and start on my path of becoming my own person. I get to go to high school, and then I can go to college. But before I can ever really get going in my career, Duchenne will rob me of my life. And Duchenne doesn't just rob me, it robs my parents, my brothers, and my friends by stealing me away from them. Duchenne is the thief that hurts everyone in its radius. Taking one look at a person living with Duchenne gives a false portrayal of the struggle of living with Duchenne. The wheelchair is deceptive. Just seeing the wheelchair doesn't do justice to what living with Duchenne is really like. The torment of Duchenne goes way beyond just living life in a wheelchair. Currently, as I write this, Duchenne has robbed me of the strength in my arms. When I first started to notice I was becoming weaker in my arms, it made me incredibly sad. I always hoped I would never get weaker in my arms, but it started to happen. I became okay with not being able to walk because at least I could still do things with my arms. But now I'm losing that too. Sometimes, and I hate to admit this, I would crawl into my bed and just cry until I fell asleep. Lying in my bed, thinking about how Duchenne was making everything I love to do become impossible, messed with my head. On these dark nights, I would feel hopeless. But then the next day, I would wake up and move on. Strangely, losing my ability to use my arms hurts more than losing my ability to walk. Losing my ability to walk was hard, but losing my ability to lift my arms and use them as I always have is like the final blow that is close to breaking me. Besides Duchenne taking away my ability to shake hands with my friends, it's making my life a whole lot harder, virtually in every aspect. Duchenne makes everyday things that people do that they don't even think about twice become overwhelmingly challenges. Trying to reach for the basket of chips at the center of the dinner table is now hard. It used to be something I took for granted because it was so easy just to extend my arm and grab a chip. But now that I'm losing muscle strength in my arms, it's like I have to drag my arm across the table just to reach the basket. Then, to actually raise my arm up to bring the food to my mouth feels like lifting a dumbbell. Something as enjoyable and relaxing as eating with my friends and family is now a challenge. Other activities, as basic as putting on a shirt, brushing my teeth, combing my hair, or really any activity that requires me to lift my arms past my chest, is extremely hard, nearly impossible. It's really annoying when I need to reach something that is on the counter or something that is within arm's reach, but I can't because I don't have enough arm strength to reach for it. In the classroom, I know the answers in my mind, but I sometimes don't get called on because I can no longer raise my arm high enough for the teacher to see my hand. It's extremely frustrating because I know the answer or I have something to contribute to the class discussion, but my body sometimes stops me from being able to play a part in the classroom. It's like my mind is growing stronger, but my body is getting weaker. I always loved to throw the football around with my dad and play catch. I always loved to shoot the basketball with my friends. These activities were a way for me to escape, and it felt good to move around. It felt good being physically active, despite not being able to walk. When I first learned that Duchenne takes away somebody's ability to use their arms, I feared that I might one day not be able to play catch or shoot hoops. It makes me sad to be at the point where my dreaded fears have become a reality. The basketball hoop my dad built for me sits in the backyard unused, as I can no longer shoot a basketball. The football my dad and I threw around sits on the shelf unused, so I can no longer throw a football. Losing the function of your arms is a very humbling thing. It could destroy a person's confidence if they let it. When I first went into a wheelchair, I figured out a way to still be able to open doors independently. I used one arm to open the door while using my other free hand to drive my wheelchair through it. With the loss of significant arm strength, it has made it hard to open doors independently, and I have to often ask somebody nearby to open the door for me. This is just another example of how Duchenne is stripping away my physical freedom as time progresses. I hate losing freedom. This concludes my reading from my book, but now I want to offer you tremendous hope. You heard from Satellos today and want to share what this company means to me as a patient in my own words. The fact that there is a group of people even attempting to work on muscle regeneration, to work on something that even has the potential to give some functional ability back, it's hard to put into words of how much gratitude I have for this effort. When I was playing catch with my dad on the beaches of California, I didn't have more dystrophin than I do now. No. What I did have as that kid playing catch on the beaches was more muscle. Satellos is aiming to do just that, build muscle from within the body. And when I look at our preliminary data of the 2 DMD dogs improving their muscle force by 111% in the first 2 months and taking the drug, and then 195% by 4 months, gives me hope. In my opinion, that says there's not a guarantee, but there's a chance that patients get stronger in some kind of way. Just thinking about the possibility of that helps me push through the struggles of today. I like to tell myself that this isn't forever, it's temporary, and it's really temporary, as Satellos is now in the clinic. So just keep pushing through, and maybe one day we will all lift a glass in the air and give a toast to the Satellos team. Before I open up for Q&A, I have some lessons for you that I think can help you and benefit your life. Lesson 1. Know why you do what you do. Why do you do what you do? It's deeper than just making money, for example. You make money so you can provide for your kids and make their lives better. When you think on a deeper level on why you do what you do, it will help you push through the challenges of life and keep going because you know the bigger meaning behind what you do. As I said earlier, my why is to minimize human suffering and propel human prosperity so that humanity can have a better quality of life. This why manifests itself and looks like this: trying to advance medicine with my nonprofit and jobs, which minimizes human suffering, writing books and giving speeches, teaching people lessons and mindsets to propel prosperity. Both of these combined leads to a better quality of life for humanity. So my question for you is, why do you do what you do? What's the deeper reason? Lesson 2, develop an adapter's mindset. Life is full of adversity and challenges, some bigger than others. And if you don't have adversity today, you're guaranteed to have a challenge thrown your way eventually. One of the best things we can do is develop an adapter's mindset, a mindset that commits to adapting to any problem thrown your way. When you first just believe that you will adapt to any problem, you are already on the path of making the problem not as bad. This looks like someone who looks for solutions and determines what they can and cannot control in a given situation. For me, I have to live this out on a daily. Going into a wheelchair, I'd have to adapt to how I mobilized, as well as adapt to the judgment I'd get from people out in public for being in a wheelchair. Or when my arms got weaker, I'd have to adapt to how I open doors and eat food. Everything first starts in the mind. So have the mindset of an adapter. Lesson 3, stay ambitious. Having some type of goal that you go after full force every day will lead to a greater fulfillment and help you move forward. Life is too short and too meaningful just to waste it and not have ambitions. Really remember, you will die one day. There's a saying in Latin, memento mori, that means remember you must die. When you keep this in mind, you value your time way more and you try to make the most of it. Realize you have to make sacrifices in order to accomplish your goals, but focus on the reward, not in how you will have to go through pain to achieve it. Also realize that you're responsible for your goals, that the power lies within you to accomplish them. If you blame somebody else, you are saying you don't have the power to accomplish the goals. To blame could be said as be lame. If you're not ambitious about anything in life, then you're kind of just existing and going through the motions. It's when you have ambitions, when you're really passionate about something, that's when you're full of energy and that's when you come alive to accomplish that ambition. Lesson 4, be consistent. This is a really simple lesson, but you can accomplish the largest of a task by being consistent and doing a little bit every single day to accomplish whatever goal you're after. You could shovel out a mountain if you did a little bit every single day. Eventually, you would level the ground. Lesson 5, be a leader to someone. You don't have to be the CEO of a large company or the president of a country or prime minister in your case in order to be a leader. You just have to be a leader to one person. You don't have to change the world, but you can change somebody's world. Lead somebody close in your life through something that you experience and knowledge that you have about overcoming that thing. I'm a big believer that you shouldn't let your sufferings go unused, but that you can use your suffering to help people overcome theirs. To close, I hope my speech today inspired you and motivated you to keep going and have hope for the future. I will now open up for questions, and please feel free to ask me anything, as I am an open book.
We go. Hi, Elijah. It's Amy.
Hi,
How are
Amy.
you? I have a question for you. So, as you know, in your audience, you could have the 14, 15, 16-year-olds. what advice would you give them as they're preparing to enter in that adult phase, that more independent phase? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a really, really good question. I think about that a lot. My younger brother, he just turned 17 last week. So I think about that. But I think what's really important when you enter that age, you're most likely in a wheelchair at that point. I think it's really important to focus on what you can do and, to really play to your strengths. So for example, you don't need to walk, you don't need to really be physically, that active to be in intellect or to be somebody that is really good at school and excels at that. Do what you can excel at. Not everybody, even if they're completely healthy, is going to be a great athlete one day or whatever it may be. So focusing on what you can be good at, I think really matters. For me, I was really good at school, and I joined all the high classes that I could take here in America, and I answered a lot of questions, and I became known as the smart guy in my class. And I mentioned that, not to brag, but more so to say that I kind of changed the perception people had around me of being the guy that's in a wheelchair to being a guy that's really smart and can help me with my homework or whatever it is in class. And I think that's important because that's how you start to tear down those judgments, those barriers that people may have of you. But kind of extending your question a little bit, like when you get older too, I think working on what you can do for a career, and really making that a focus of your life, I think really helps. Again, tear down those judgments, those barriers, whatever it may be. It normalizes you in a lot of ways. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is to play to your strengths and really just focus on what you can, and take a lot of focus in that and not focus so much on the disability and what you can't do because I mean you can't do it. So you can't what's the point of thinking about it, right? You can't do it, but what you can do, well, there's a lot you can do. So go and think about that and make the most of that.
Yep, I just have an online question for you, Elijah.
Yeah.
So, what can I do to raise awareness at my school and in my community? Or suggestions you would give?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think, so when I was in middle school, and this is kind of a weird way to answer the question, but when I was in middle school, I'm gonna meet. So I was meeting a bunch of new kids for the first time because it's a transition school, and a lot of people come up to me and go, "Why are you in a wheelchair?" or whatever, and I first was really annoyed and thought, "Oh my gosh, am I gonna do this every day?" But once I started to embrace it and become knowledgeable about Duchenne and you can answer their questions, that's a really great way because people that naturally seek you out want to know, they're curious about it. And, explaining to them and telling them what it is, is a great thing to do. And I think knowledge is power because it shows that, hey, look, I just have a genetic issue. That's really all that's wrong with me, which causes this. But, I'm really just like everybody else. So I think that's important. I think, telling your teachers about it. I think, being vocal in a respectful way about what you need and hey, look, it's harder for me to raise my arm or whatever. Like somebody once suggested to me when I was in school, which I thought was interesting. I never did it, but it was interesting, is like they have like these well they did. They had like these sticks with like a Mickey Mouse hand on it. And they were saying, hey, every time you have a question, you should just like hold that up, to show like you're raising your hand or whatever. Like, things like that, that would bring a lot of awareness and make it real of, okay, this is what the disease does. It's a muscle weakening, wasting disease. So I think that's a start. I think that, you could I don't know, you could sell shirts, or like if you have a nonprofit that you want to help, you can, do that. At one point with my nonprofit, I had basically my whole high school buying clothing that we made at the time. And it was really cool because everybody wanted it because like, I gave it, okay, so my business mind is I gave it to like the popular kids and had teachers wearing it to class and things like that. And then everybody wanted it and it caused a whole ripple effect. And basically everybody knew at that point what Duchenne was at my school. There's a lot of ways. I think it's fun. I think just be creative. I think, um, you know, be confident with it because that really matters. And embrace it. And, just one person at a time because one becomes two, two becomes four, four becomes eight. It starts to spread fast. The word gets out fast. So that would be my advice on how to bring awareness to a school. And it's a lot of fun because a school is kind of like a mini community. And so you can kind of see how it all plays out.
Hi, Elijah. It's Brian Atkinson. I'm the chair of the board on Defeat Duchenne. I was just looking at your website. It's pretty cool, pretty impressive. Can you tell us about your podcast?
Yeah, so the Distortion podcast is really, really cool. I think it's a good idea, probably because I came up with it, right? So I probably think it's a good idea if you came up with it, right? But what I aim to do with this podcast is I aim to give a platform, a microphone to anybody that has a relationship to Duchenne. So obviously patients, but also parents, also teachers, scientists, anybody that has some kind of relationship. We want them to come on the podcast and tell their perspective. And when it comes to people with Duchenne, what I always try to do is humanize them first. So what I mean by that is we don't even talk about Duchenne for the first 15, 20 minutes. We talk about what do you like to do? What's your favorite movie star, sports team, music, places to eat, whatever it is. What do you think about a lot, like things like that. And then we talk about, well, how has Duchenne impacted you? And I think this is important, one, because we should change perceptions on how people are viewed with Duchenne, but also two, it shows that these people are people, not just a number that you read in a textbook, but these are real people with real lives. And it shows the importance of trying to make treatments to better their life. So that's the Distortion podcast. It's really cool. My friend Ryan, who passed away, he was one of the first people to do it, and it's cool because I could watch it today and kind of relive my experience with him. So um, very, very cool. You could check it out. There's a video. It's on YouTube. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of that. But the video, yeah, you can watch the videos of it on YouTube.
We have another question for you. One second.
Hi, Elijah. I'm Maureen. Um, I was just wondering, like, you seem extremely intelligent, obviously, but advocating for yourself versus me advocating for my 17-year-old son. I was wondering, like, he accidentally was put in a portable, which is an outside classroom this year, which you can imagine. I'm sure it was accidentally, but anyways, I was trying to get him to advocate for himself and ask that maybe another class go outside or anyway, it got a little complicated and I ended up going to the school and doing it myself. But I was wondering if you can remember when you decided like I can advocate this for myself. Is there a time where you would have liked maybe mom to let go of the reins a little bit and do it yourself? Can you give
To
me
be
some?
Yeah, to clarify, are you saying this is a class like for the intellect, like they put them in a class that's for the intellectually challenged? Is that
No, there
right?
was over abundance of people at the school this year, so they made like little trailers outside for
Oh,
to, yeah,
oh,
horrible. Yeah. So I'm
wow.
pretty sure. And I
Okay.
was so immediately he was just incredibly stressed out of without saying anything of how am I getting up 5 stairs, which obviously is impossible in a wheelchair. So we're making jokes
Yeah.
that it will send him with blankets and they'll open the windows and stuff, trying to make light of it. But obviously, he's not going out to an outside classroom. That's ridiculous. But no one
Yeah.
noticed. It just kept going on for the whole week that he was going to have to go out there in the next couple of weeks. So, anyway, all I was wondering is like, when do you let him advocate for himself instead of me going in and meeting the principal and telling her she's insane?
Mhm. Yeah, I always thought as a younger person that, oh, once I become an adult, the adults are going to be so smart, but not the case, right? That's crazy that they did that. Um, that's a really good question. I think everybody's different too, right? At like what age you come into being, and everybody has a different kind of personality. Um, y- y- sometimes it is like you want your parent, like I remember being in school, you want your parent to say this or whatever, and then other times you kind of want to handle it your own. Um, I think really just communicating with your son is probably what I would suggest in the sense of like, hey, like, do you want to take care of this or would you prefer me to do it on every specific issue? And then you can kind of gauge what issues he wants you to be part of and what ones he wants to take care on his own. Because yeah, I definitely think it is good to advocate for yourself and get the help that you need by doing it yourself. That builds confidence and that's important. But at the same time, I definitely think like when you're younger, sometimes hearing things from a parent, it may go further in a lot of ways. So I don't know. This is probably not answering your question directly, but I think it's nuanced and I think it's a balancing act. But I think the best way, what I would want is my mom to ask me, do you want me to do this, Elijah, or do you want to take care of it, right? So. I think that's the best advice I could give on that question.
Afternoon, Elijah. My name is Jacques. I'm here with my wife, Valerie. We have a son of 12, a 12-year-old who has Duchenne. First of all, thank you for your testimony. I think it's great. It gives hope to a lot of us. And having knowledge of your book, I would like to understand, maybe you can speak to the fact that who would you say were the best mentors to you? You talked about being a leader, but you obviously had leaders in your life. I'd like to hear about that a bit, if you wouldn't mind. And I think I'd like to take that back to our son to see who he could look up to. Of course, he has his parents, but it's good to have a good support system. So I'd like to hear you about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think having mentors, the right ones, in life definitely matters. So mine are kind of maybe unconventional, I'm not sure, but really ever since I was young, I really, really looked up to businessmen. So like Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett. Those are my four. So I kind of looked at them and it's not just business, but a lot of that can translate into to daily life, um, like for example, Jeff Bezos, he likes to think long term with Amazon, but I like to think long term with life, and think about, well, what I do today, how's it going to impact me tomorrow? Or he has this thing he calls regret minimalization framework, which is a really nerdy way of just saying, like, don't do things that you'll regret. And so he likes to do this thing, which I don't know if this would be good for a really, really young kid, but I mean, I did it, where he goes, when I'm on my deathbed or when I die, um, how many regrets will I have? You want to try to minimize that, right? So, I took their advice and used it. But I would also say too, teachers that I respected and shared values with, I would look up to them and ask them for advice. I kind of joke with my teachers now that I think I sometimes learn more just having conversations with them than I did, being in their class. And that's no disrespect to their class. That's actually a compliment to just their wisdom and soaking it all in. I I think just talking to many different people and I'm gathering that, like, for example, when I was an intern at the district attorney's office, that was a college program that I did when I was 15, and I was around a lot of older people. But my mentor, I worked on the homicide unit, and well, the guy I was with, I considered him a mentor, Dan Binion, and I learned a lot from him too about seeing the cruelty of humanity and his motivation to address it and to bring justice to the world. So just seeing all different types of perspectives, I think matters. Of course, my parents are probably the biggest role models and mentors for me. um, you know uh, their selflessness and really putting their kids before themselves is the greatest act of love. And I'm not just saying that, but I truly see, my brother Max, severely disabled. I remember my mom always being there taking care of him, and that really rubbed off on me. And my dad being a head football coach, I remember being young on the field and running around and playing catch and just seeing how he operates a football team. I think that might have got me interested in business and definitely led to my ambitions because, football, you try to get better every week and you try to fix your mistakes and you review film and you're competitive and you're trying to win and you're trying to get better than yourself and then you're trying to be your competition. Like all these things I think led to that. And so, I kind of think it's a mixture of them, from people like business people that, maybe never met, but you could read their books, you could listen to their podcasts, watch their interviews, all these different things, to people close to my life. But really just talking to everybody and be genuinely curious about, their perspective on life, I think is a great way to have mentors. But mentors are definitely, I think, a cheat code to life, because you can basically gain a lot of wisdom even if you're young by just taking it all in, and that's really the benefit of reading or listening to people that have a lot of wisdom. You know, uh Frank, for example, is somebody that I look up to. And not just saying that we just did a podcast, but I love hearing about Frank's business philosophy and how he goes about things. I think it's brilliant. And so my other colleagues, Dr. Mitchell, I don't know, I saw him earlier. I don't know if he's still there, but he's taught me a lot of things in the science field. And I mean, I even ask him, which is kind of unrelated sometimes, like, why were you interested in biology? What got you in this field? And, even how did you meet your wife? I want to know it all, right? I think he's smart, so I respect him. So, how did you go about everything in life? So, um, that's a long answer, but it's a really important question, and it's really a big part of my success, is the people around me and just learning from them, and and going to them for different things.
Any other questions in the audience? I see a hand. One sec.
Hi, Elijah. My name is Linda. I have an 11-year-old son, Aiden, with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And I just want to say what a remarkable young man you are. And you've certainly given me a lot of hope. And you've given me, I feel like I've gained some knowledge today on how to deal with some situations with my son. So I just want to say thank you very much for being such an open book. And I really have a non-important question, but a couple of us Duchenne moms here in Canada were trying to order the Destroy Duchenne gear, and we had trouble doing that. And great representation using Mark Wahlberg, by the way. But we would love to see some of that gear here in Canada. Um, I know it's not a very important question, but it is to us.
Yeah, no, I think it is an important question, actually. I want to help everybody around the world, especially if they want to support the cause. And by the way, thank you for your kind words. I do appreciate that, especially parents. Parents really have my heart. Seeing what my parents have gone through, and with my siblings and whatever. That it's impacted me. So I really value compliments like that from parents. Regarding the municipal gear, yeah, there's been a lot of people from around the world asking that question. Um, you know, I, I'm one of my ideas, and we're gonna have to look into it. But one of my ideas is maybe like we can buy some of that here and then ship it there. We could take care of that as an organization. Um, but we would have to talk to municipal, and I don't, a lot of it's already sold out. Um, but I think there's still some items left. Um, but yeah, no, I appreciate that. Definitely reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram is Elijah J Stacy. DM me and we can talk about it, and maybe make that happen.
Any other questions, thoughts? Looking good. Anything online? Everything good? No. All right, Elijah, this is Kate. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Really powerful, really awesome messaging. And yeah, we just want to thank you so much. And on behalf of Defeat Duchenne Canada, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, and I just hope you guys keep going strong, and we're gonna get through this. So thank you.
Thank you so much.